busy. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and we have a new week and we have 4 new guests, and we're wrapping up July and then we're heading into August. Stay tuned. The August press release will be released either tonight or tomorrow, so stay tuned for those guests that are coming next month in August. We do have a rescheduled tea time, and just to remind everybody, July 20th tea time has been rescheduled to August 5th at 7 p.m. So check that out. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to all those platforms: Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Lineable, Lemonade, Clapper, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe. And if you notice that the guests are on those platforms, give them a follow and subscribe as well, because that's how we make a difference, by supporting one another. Jump over to the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those good platforms. And if I haven't mentioned any of them, Miss Liz is on those as well. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe. Then jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnering with them for about 4 years. And if you're looking to be on different podcasts and Miss Liz doesn't give you what you're looking for, you can jump over there. There's over 50 different shows that you can pitch yourself to, and they'll be happy to have you as a guest as well. So I always like supporting my collaborators and my colleagues in the podcast world. So check that out, babyboomers.org. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro. And then we're going to get Betsy in here and we're going to serve her tea. And her tea today is happiness is authenticity. That is the tea we are serving in the house today. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or check my link tree in Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and will welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where every conversation reminds us that life does not always hand us a map. Sometimes it gives us a nudge, a memory, a loyal dog, and a direction we never expected to follow. Today, we are delighted to welcome Betsy Vereckey, journalist, memoirist, astrologer, and author of Moving to My Dog's Hometown. Betsy lives in Vermont in an old farmhouse with 3 very opinionated terriers, each apparently serving as an unpaid member of her editor board. Her debut memoir tells the story of an impulsive decision she made in her mid-30s to move to Hanover, New Hampshire, a town she knew almost nothing about. The one connection she did have was deeply personal. It was the place where she and her former husband had adopted their dog, Roland. What began as an unexpected move became a much larger journey through change, identity, grief, independence, belonging, and the courage to rebuild a life where the ordinary plan no longer fits. Through journalism, memoir, and astrology, Betsy explores the patterns, turning points, and meaningful moments that help us understand where we have been and where we may be headed next. Today, we'll explore the story behind moving to my dog's hometown, starting over after a major life transition, writing honestly about memory, loss, and reinvention, the role animals play in healing and belonging, finding home in unexpected places, and how astrology and storytelling helps us understand life's turning points. Betsy reminds us that sometimes the decision that looks impulsive from the outside is actually the soul recognizing a path before the mind fully understands it. So grab your favorite cup and join us for a warm, thoughtful conversation filled with memoir, courage, dogs, reinvention, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. And let me get Betsy in here and let's spill some tea together.
Hello.
Tea.
Thank you for that introduction.
Let me see. Do I got you?
Am I here?
There we go. Got you now.
I was just thanking you for that amazing introduction.
Well, thank you so much. So, Betsy, tell us a little bit before we get into the book. Who was Betsy as a little girl and who's Betsy now?
Yeah, it's funny because I know you asked your guests this, so I thought about it a little beforehand, and I thought I was going to have this really different answer for you, and there were a lot of similarities between me now and me as a little girl. I think there was some stuff in the middle that I had to work out, which is in the memoir, but I'm from Ohio. I grew up just outside of Youngstown, but the town I grew up in was kind of rural. And I was always doing stuff with my mom. Like we went creek walking and we just did, all this kind of stuff outside. I went to Catholic school. So I was raised to be pretty religious. I'm no longer that way. I would call myself more spiritual than religious. And my mom was a teacher and she was also a part-time librarian. So she just had me reading books by the time I was in kindergarten. And that is still something that has carried with me. I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock to do my reading, while my husband Andrew is out in the living room watching some terrible science fiction show. So, yeah, kind of the same person, except for maybe that whole religion, spirituality thing. I definitely think I suffered as a little girl from, I have to be a good girl, or I have to do these things. And, I sort of joke now, I don't even think the Catholic Church would even look at me now. I'm divorced. I've pretty much broken all of the rules you can possibly break. Yeah. So my joke is I don't know if the church would catch on fire if I walked inside. So,
So, Betsy, tell us a little bit about who you are today, besides the girl that shouldn't walk into the church.
Yeah. So I've been a writer. So I'm 46 years old. I've been a writer ever since, oh my God, I go through these old scrapbooks that my mom made, and you can just see me working it out with the crayons, almost just having to get this writing energy out of my body. But I went to school for journalism. I always tell people I never felt more at home than I did in a newsroom. So I was in a newsroom for pretty much all of my 20s. And I just loved it. It was my introduction to life in New York City. And yeah. And then journalism kind of started to change a little bit. I wasn't really getting the opportunity to do some of the stories that I wanted to do. And New York is so expensive. This is going to all be relevant. I'm just going to. New York is so expensive. So I took a more corporate job to pretty much pay the rent. And it seemed like a good exit time from journalism. And that's kind of when things really started to go wrong, because I kind of ended up in a series of jobs that it was like more corporate writing. And I don't want to knock it for anyone who's doing it, because like as a journalist, there's still some journalism stuff that I do that is really fulfilling for me on some level, like in my brain, like solving problems or interviewing people. Yeah, but that's kind of where things really started to go wrong when I didn't, if you don't love the life you have or the job you have, like you're going to be pretty miserable pretty quickly. Which can lead into all sorts of other things like spending more time at bars. And so it just was like not the best setup. So things didn't really start to improve for me until I moved to Hanover, New Hampshire, for the sole reason that it was where my ex-husband and I got my dog Ronan, which sounded like a crazy decision to everybody around me. All, my girlfriends were like, what are you doing? You're insane. You don't know anybody there. Do you know what New England is like? And yeah, that first year was hard, but it was also awesome too. So, yeah, I'm really glad I made that change for myself, because I was in a hole.
And I always love getting to know my guests, before we get into the books, before we get into the services or programs that they're offering, because we want to know that you're an individual, right? That do you see the patterns and the changes as well? And like you said, you thought about your answer before you came on about the little girl and who you are now. And you're like, oh, there is a pattern. There is a connection. Our inner child, it surprises us from time to time, and it says like, we're still in here. We're still,
Yeah. I think I had a really good childhood until like a certain point, until my mom died. And it was just a very joyful time. And sometimes I still feel that joy when I'm writing something that I really just feels great. So.
Well, let's get into this book with Roland. And we have a question here from Tools for Everyday Living. What inspired the title Moving to My Dog's Hometown? And I love how unique and memorable it is.
Yeah, so I have to thank my writers group for that, because when I was working on the book, I like to be part of a writers group. So I've been in a writers group for like the past 7 years. And people in the group have come and gone, but every Thursday night we would bring something that we were working on. So this one night I brought a query letter, which is like what you do when you're pitching agents or publishers. And I, told the story trying to sell my book. And I had this line in there that said, I moved to my dog's hometown, and there were 2 or 3 people in that group who just said, that's it. That's amazing. You should just, do that. And so of course I was like, oh, I don't know. And I tried on a few more things. And even by the time it got to the publisher, she said, we've run this by so many people and this is it, because everybody loves it. And when you have a title for a book, you want to have a good hook. So you could like talk about it with your friends. So that also kind of did that work. Oh, like that weird story about that girl who moved to her dog's hometown. So it kind of like did that too. Yeah, sometimes it's kind of fun. I was explaining that book, Theo of Golden, to somebody this morning with that kind of, it's like, it's almost a sentence of marketing, how you talk about it. So I'm grateful to that title because it seems to be working.
Well, I'm going to pull up the book so everybody can see it, but I have a copy here. And what I told Betsy before we went live is I like the humor in this book. I like the little digs, like the little giggles and that. When I was reading it, I was chuckling. So I love when I chuckle when I read a book because that makes me even more engaged into the book. So I'm going to pull up the book. So Betsy, if you just want to share a little bit about what we're looking at for the audio listeners.
Yeah, thank you. So this was great. So the publisher said, I think we should do a photo of you and Ronan. I also feel like I kind of have to go on the record a little bit and say I don't usually dress this preppy, but the photographer was like, I need you in neutral colors. So this is what I did. And this was the photo. He must have taken 2,000 photos. And this was in the top 10 because I just wanted something that captured my relationship with him. And I mean, you can just see, I think I had probably just tossed him a treat and his tongue is hanging out of his mouth. The in the background, that building on the far right is actually the bar where I meet Andrew in the book, who is a love interest. So that was also great. And you can kind of see the leaves in the background. We took this in October, which is just an amazing time of year to be in New England. It's my favorite time of year. I don't care if winter's coming. It's just beautiful for the moments that, you know, the leaves look like that. Yeah. And then we have this little subtitle where I kind of fought for a little bit for that to be the title. And then everyone said no, but this little subtitle says stories of everything I didn't know I wanted. And I just love that. I love how he put it around Ronan because I think it frames him so well. But that's really what the book is about. It's just kind of each chapter is a short story that is, you know, a memoir in its whole, but all of these different things, like I say pretty early in the book, I mean, I had cats growing up. We did have a rescue dog growing up as well, but I'd always trended toward cats. I didn't know the first thing about dogs. So kind of that, like I didn't even know I wanted a dog. I didn't know I wanted to move to New England. I mean, I had lived in New York City for 11 years. So that was quite the change. Yeah.
So Betsy, why did you put the yellow and the pink in there? I know why you put the pink in there, but why those colors?
Yeah. So, it was, I think if I remember right, we had some trouble. We had to do something that popped because of the leaves and the color in the background. And she showed me some different options. I think I looked at 8 different options. Like I definitely was sold on the pink. And it was funny because she kind of threw it in there and I said, oh no, I definitely want like the magenta pink. I think I don't even know what color you would call that, like neon yellow green. I think that was just what looked best and stood out. And when you have a book online, you know, with Amazon, you want that little thumbnail to pop. So that was also part of it. Yeah.
I like the colors because you know what it reminds me of? Strawberries and lemons.
I love that. I love that. I love it. Yeah. I also love strawberries and lemons. So
that's what it reminded me when I got the book. I was like, oh, strawberries and lemons together. Oh, there's going to be a lot of lemons in this book.
Yeah, well, I just wanted it to be fun because I sort of feel like that's the vibe of the book. And that's all I told them. I just said, it really has to be fun. So
there's a lot of lemons in the book for everybody that wants to go and grab one. The website is on the screen. I will get Betsy to say it at the end of the show. We do have some questions that are coming in, but I know why you like magenta, hot magenta on top of it. But we're going to get into that in just a second. But let's get a couple of these questions out there. From Clyde was there one specific moment when you realized moving would completely change your life?
Yeah. So basically, my ex-husband and I, we lived in New York City and we lived down near the financial district. And when we got divorced, I moved to Brooklyn and I was 36, 37 at the time. And I had always been able to move to a different part of the city and reinvent myself, get a new job, get a new apartment. And I just felt, which I did, I moved to Brooklyn, but every time I saw One World Trade Center, I always thought about my ex-husband. I always thought about our marriage. And it was just like, even if I was having a great day, I'd see that building and I would just think like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm 35 and getting divorced, and everything else, like nothing was going right. I mean, truly nothing. I mean, dating sucked. I hated my job. My apartment was full of mice. I mean, you name it, and I can tell you that something wasn't working about it. So it was, I just gone out for a walk with a friend at lunchtime and I saw the building again and I actually quit later that afternoon. And I had been thinking about quitting for a while. But let me tell you, it was the best thing I could have done because I couldn't take it back. Like it just really put everything in motion. So, it was like, well, I'm not going to do this terrible job. I don't want to be in this city. And then a friend of mine who lived in Hanover had, she and her husband had retired and just remodeled their house. So the downstairs floor was its own apartment. And she said, just come here and be your first tenant. And I thought, fine, that sounds great. And I mean, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. Like I had nothing. And I thought I would stay for like 3 or 6 months until I figured it out. But the years kept passing and I just was like, I really like it here. So it has been almost 10 years that I've lived here and I just love it. So crazy decisions can work out, even if they seem crazy to everybody around you.
Right. And sometimes the animals know best.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Well, we have another question for you from Real Charlotte is, how did your journalism background influence the way you wrote your memoir?
Yeah, I love this question. I pretty much wrote, like I started writing little essays. And I started like publishing them in like the Boston Globe or Washington Post or these just little like slices of life. And then I've never been the type of person who like sat down and has been like, I am going to write a novel and I'm going to start it, or I'm going to write this whole memoir about my life story. I'm kind of a sneaker wader in. So I had written kind of enough of these essays where I was like, I think I have a book here. So then I like joined this writing group and the woman who runs the writing workshops is great. It's the Writers Center of White River Junction in Vermont. And so it kind of built slowly over time. So yeah, and I will say this was like, it took me 7 years from start to finish, not to write it, but to write it, to find a publisher. This was also during COVID, which really kind of just, messed things up. And so yeah, and then publishing can be a slog. It just takes a while to publish things sometimes even. And I mean, it's totally fine, but this book was actually supposed to publish last year and it published in January. So, I mean, at some point you just have to be like, okay,
like, just go with the flow.
Just let me know like where to be and like when to wash my hair, basically.
Right. Sometimes we want it done this time and it's not the right time. And the universe just says, you know what, I'll just make you wait another 6 months before that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I had a little cry and then I just moved on. So
yeah, we just got to trust the universe sometimes, especially when it comes 100%. To writing. Like writing a book is never the way that you see it, right? It's like picturing your dream home, right? It's never the way that it looks.
Yes. And there's so many other factors. I feel like I heard a lot of people say this when I was writing my book, and I just always thought that was a load of crap. But it's true for me that really the best part was writing it and being in community, especially because this was also during COVID. So we were all at home, just like Zooming and working on our projects. But even now, when I go back through and I read the book, or I'm talking about something, I will remember something that somebody said, like giving me feedback on how to make it better or what they liked. So I definitely recommend working with a group if you're working on a group, even if it's not for the whole time, like just do some 6-week class or something. Because writing is really solitary, and you know, you can get depressed, especially if you're working on sadder material. So
Well, that kind of goes into the question that just came in from Olivia was writing the memoir an emotional experience for you?
oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, there were sections I was really just avoiding. I mean, like my mom's death, like just stuff I hadn't really gone near in a really long time. I was also really nervous about writing about my ex-husband because we ended on decent terms. It wasn't like a terrible relationship, but he is a very private person. So I had a lot of anxiety, which I also think kind of caused a little bit of writer's block here and there. Yeah, it was definitely emotional. So I just tried to balance it out. Like tried to write some funnier stuff and then, maybe try to write the sadder stuff. Or if I woke up in the morning, okay, so here's a little Betsy spiritual thing. Animal spirit cards, where you like pull one and it has a message for you. These definitely got me through writing my memoir, but I would follow the message of the card. If I, found that I couldn't write something or I was feeling depressed or lost, I would pull a card. I still find the tarot a little bit intimidating. So I mostly work with like oracle cards, but I do have a tarot deck. And I use it when I'm feeling really brave.
Has astrology helped you get through the harder moments, Betsy?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every morning I get up and I have a little calendar and it shows me like where the planets are, like what zodiac sign the moon is in, or where Saturn is at, or like what I might be facing. Um, yeah, and that also has helped my writing process. Like if there's maybe something a little in there that looks challenging, I might say, okay, I don't think I'm going to write that today, or even I may try to avoid seeing that person today. So it does really guide me, but I will also say that, yeah, like the astrology, sometimes it has a mind of its own, and you just end up like you were saying so eloquently about like the timing of the book just being the right time. And that has happened to me over and over again. Like, oh gosh, if that had never happened, then this would never have happened. And, I think about that a lot with my book where, oh man, all of these really sucky things happen, but I actually really like where I am today. And I know that if one thing might have been different, like if I had actually liked my job or if I had met a boyfriend, I might have stayed in New York, So I'm actually kind of glad that everything just collapsed. And when things start to collapse, it just becomes so much easier to surrender because there's nothing left to hold on to. You're like, okay, what else? What else you got?
Exactly, right? What you going to throw at me next?
Yeah.
What's coming?
Yeah.
We have a question here from James is what advice would you give someone who's afraid to start over?
Yeah, that is a great question. I would say a lot of things. I would say journaling really helped me. That was one of the first things I did. And actually an astrologer recommended it like right when I was getting divorced, and I haven't stopped. So there's this thing, it's called morning pages, where you write 3 pages a day. It's this technique created by this author named Julia Cameron, and it's for writers who are stuck. But all it is this is actually my morning pages book for for until it's done. But it's cool because you get to go out and buy a fun notebook. And you write 3 pages a day. I mean, it can be, most of my things are, okay, I ate this, or this annoyed me, but it's kind of like getting the gunk off the windshield before you start your day. So that really helped me see what I wanted. Like I would write these thoughts in my journal, like, I am unhappy. I'm like drinking every single night. I mean, and like you can't run from yourself on the page, you're just seeing it. And one of the really nice things about writing by hand is that you can't really censor yourself. You're just writing. So it's like coming straight from you. So that was really helpful for me to make a change, because I was, okay, I'm like really not happy. It also helped me to talk to some friends about what was going on. But I would also say that with the word of caution, which is like, if you are thinking about moving, well, friends probably want to keep you where you are. So that can also have a little bit of a double-edged sword. I would say also, like, talk to people who are way outside your age group. So like this woman, Susan, who's in the group and who's, in the book, and whose house I moved into, she's now 71. And it was just really helpful to talk to her about some stuff, especially with my divorce. Well, number one, conveniently, she was a divorce lawyer, which was like, I mean, you can't make that up. But, they have like, older people have a different perspective, and, Susan in particular asked me really hard questions that my friends weren't asking me. Like, do you want kids? Like, do you want this for your life? So that can also be helpful. And then I would also say to this person, go get your chart read by an astrologer, because that'll get you moving pretty quickly.
I like having friends in different age groups, even like little kids and teenagers and stuff, because you get different perspectives, right, of how they look at life. Yeah. And the little ones ask you the tough questions sometimes, and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I want to hear that question, or I'm not ready to answer that one. Yeah. They really bring you back into the moment, the present, and make you realize, right? Do you really want to have kids? Do you want to live and work in this town forever? Do you want to travel? If you want to travel, like just having that conversation, right? Yeah. I love talking with the older souls because they do have a different perspective on life, and they're pretty direct too. They're pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah. Most of my friends here are like 60 and up. So I do have some ones who are like more my age, but yeah, I really like those 60 and 70-year-olds. I'll tell you. Yeah, we like hang out all the time. It's great. So,
well, Betsy, we have another question here for you from Real Charlotte. Which chapter of your memoir means the most to you personally?
Oh, I love this question. This is kind of when I first saw this question, the chapter that popped out at me was it doesn't sound very important, but I bought a bike. And like, when I was writing this book and going through this transition, I was like really poor. And I, I was freelance writing. I was definitely going from paycheck to paycheck. And I was, on Cobra, which was so expensive. I mean, I had some alimony and stuff, but I wasn't in a full-time job where I had that security. So, so the reason this is important is like, it was a lot for me to pay $600 or $700 for this bike. But I had gone into this bike store with Susan and Jake, the people whose house that I moved into, and they're like, oh, you got to get a bike. So we can like all ride around town together. And there was a bike, and the brand is Electra. And it was so like not what people in New England and Vermont get for bikes. Like it was not an off-roading bike. It was a little, cruiser, and it was this beautiful color. Actually, it was this green color. And yeah, so I bought this bike, and boy, I had so much guilt and shame over, paying $600 or $700 for this bike, but I still have that bike, and boy, it brings me so much joy. It brings me so much joy riding that bike. And it really brought up a lot of stuff. There's a chapter in the book where I talk about this, but like just riding my bike when I was a kid, like I never rode my bike with my parents. Like there was like animosity between my parents. It was just, so it was just kind of this example of like how you can have a chosen family, and Susan and Jake and I, we would like ride our bikes together for ice cream, or we would ride up to the green at Dartmouth College, and like she would bring snacks and like some booze and a thermos. It was great. Yeah, so I'm really happy I bought that bike.
So you mentioned the shame and the guilt from buying the bike.
Yeah.
Do you think that came from being in a marriage where you had to like look at the budget and figure out money and that as well?
Yeah. So interestingly, I don't know what this says, but like we were married. It wasn't a very long marriage. It was like 5 years. I mean, we married in 2012. Well, I met him in 2020, hold on, 2010. And then we divorced in 2016. But of course, like we were separated and stuff in there. So it wasn't like we were like totally together all that time. But we actually kept our finances pretty separate. Like we had a joint account for things, but it was pretty much like we weren't really intertwined in that way. And actually in a lot of ways, I mean, in some ways it was really easy to get divorced because we lived in New York City, so we didn't own real estate together. We didn't have kids. I mean, Ronan, our dog, really was the only thing that we kind of had to divide, and there was no question he was coming with me. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think I just felt like I felt like I was being a little bit irresponsible, like to make a bad money decision when I should have been saving more. But let me tell you, this is so funny. Talking about being authentic and stuff. So I bought the helmet I bought for the bike, was this like really cool white helmet, and it had ice cream cones on it. And I just loved this helmet, and I still wear it. And I rode this bike up to a coffee shop last weekend, and this group of women who were in their 30s were like, that helmet is awesome. And I was like, I know, it is the best. So anyway, that was like more frivolous spending, but totally worth it. So.
Absolutely, and sometimes we need those little trinkets, and that reminds us of the little kid in us as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of a nostalgic person, so every time I look at that bike, it just reminds me of that era of my life, and that I'm still going, the bike's still here. So.
Well, looking back, Betsy, do you think Ronan unknowingly led you exactly where you needed to be?
Yeah, totally. Like 100%. Yeah, I mean, he was a pretty great, he passed last year, but he was a pretty great dog. He was good in the city. He was good as a country boy. And I think there's something special about a girl and her dog. It's like you don't really feel alone. There's this one chapter in the book where so I'm living downstairs, and Susan and Jake go away, and they go away for the weekend, and Ronan is just up and like by the back door, and he's barking a lot, and I'm convinced that somebody's trying to break into the house because he's never done that before. And also something else that happened was that Susan and Jake didn't lock their doors. So it was like, this guy could have like come in. But anyway, so I'm like, oh my God, this dog has made such a change. He's like standing by the back door, like acting like this like manly dog. And I'm just, hiding in bed. Like, can I do damage with a butter knife if somebody comes in here? I don't know. And anyway, so the next morning we went outside and it turned out that there was a bear out there who had, knocked over all of the trash cans and stuff. So, yeah, he totally was this, like protective force in my life. And, it just was really great. It was great for him. We had like a fenced in backyard. I was talking about money and things I was doing for work. Well, Susan had quite a network of dog people who needed their dogs walked. So I like walked dogs for money. I like house sat. I did overnight visits with people's dogs. And it was great because it was exactly what I should have been doing. It was fun. I mean, so much better than sitting in an office in Manhattan wondering, why am I here? So, but there is a trade-off, right? So, I definitely worried a lot about money that first year, but I was also a lot happier. So, I think you make these changes and they're never perfect, but sometimes they come pretty close. So.
Well, the chapter that I liked reading was scrambled eggs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about scrambled eggs?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. My adventures in fertility treatment. So that is definitely what it felt like. So, yeah.
So how did you get the title for that chapter?
Yeah. So that chapter is basically about when I knew my marriage wasn't going to work, I decided to do egg freezing, hoping that maybe it would work, that I could use these eggs years later, like once I had met the right person. And, they really market it to you as, okay, if you take these meds at this time and you do this and you do this, like you're at this age, these can be your results. And that was not the case for me. I mean, I was 36 and, I think an average round of egg freezing, you get like 12 eggs or 13, and I got 4, and they were not really great quality. So, and it was also just like a terrible experience just because, I was alone. I was going through my divorce. And we were talking about stuff on credit cards. Like I put that on my credit card. So I had a lot of anxiety about like paying that off. And yeah, that actually was not a great choice because I did use those eggs eventually one day in the future and they didn't work. So, I don't regret it, but, you kind of just take chances and see what happens. But that was also kind of a dark moment. Those were kind of like during the COVID days.
Yeah. I liked the topics of all the chapters. Like I liked how you picked like a little depth into them. So when you see the title of that chapter, you're like, oh, what's this going to be about? Where are we going with this? Like, when I read scrambled eggs, I was like, oh, she's going to scramble some eggs. Like, I literally thought it's scrambled eggs. I was just like, oh, I like the way that you told the story because the story, it's a heavy story, but it's also a light story and a way of understanding on how to belong, right? And how a pet makes you look at life in a different way, like life-changing aspects, right?
Yeah. I mean, and actually now we have 3 dogs and, I miss them when I travel, like life just feels so empty. And I probably would feel that way if I had a cat. But I've always been an animal person. So, and even actually, I also volunteer we have a, wildlife center near my house and they, rehab injured birds. So I volunteer there a couple days a week, which is amazing. I'm also a birder, so I love birds. So I was actually there this morning, but yeah, just I love being around animals. So
They
it's
always,
funny.
well, it's
It's
almost like an astrology card, right, Betsy? Is they have a message for us that we might have
yeah.
not looked at. Like if we see an injured bird, they have a story to tell us, like their journey that came and kind of
Oh
give
yeah.
that bonding connection, right? Of understanding the pain that they're going through, the healing process. It's just like us, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel with dogs connect with us. Like they can tell when we're sick, they can tell when we're not feeling right.
Yeah.
A cat can too, as well, if you train it to be like a dog. Like my cat here is like a dog. Yesterday I had a slow day, so I was like slow and easy. So she was kind of like trotting off, and I was like, no, slow and easy. So she actually back paced herself, and then she was mama, and I was like, slow and easy, slow and easy. And she kind of just trotted beside me like a little doggy. So, like you can train cats. But this year I've been getting a lot of dogs coming to the table of tea time. The universe is saying, pay attention to the dogs because the dogs have a story for you. They have a lesson in the blessing.
I
So,
love that.
and when you found me with the dog, I was just like, oh my goodness, there's another puppy that we
There's
got to
another
get
dog.
out.
I'll tell you a quick story. Someone who read my book messaged me on Instagram a couple months ago, and she told me that her dog at some point was like really licking this area on her neck, and like there wasn't anything there or something, but she was like, why is he really like licking this area? So she went and had it looked at, and it was like cancer. So she's doing great now, but I just always thought that was an amazing story. And to your point, how they just know,
Yeah.
Like something's wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They do sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we have another question here for you from Tools for Everyday Living is how did your beloved dog influence your perspective on life beyond the move itself?
Wow. So speaking of astrology, like one of the things about Ronan is that he was an Aries. And so Aries is like initiation energy. It's a fire sign. It is like go out and get him energy. I don't have a lot of that naturally, but like Ronan in his astrological chart, because of course I did the chart for my dog, has a lot of planets in Aries. So he was just naturally, it just, I was always afraid to take the leash off of him because I was scared I would never see him again. Like he definitely, and even, oh my God, even in the last few weeks of his life, I took the leash off of him, would go on these like really nice walks. And I'd turn around and he'd be gone. So I've always thought about that with him. And when I originally set out to get a dog, I was hoping for like a sweet, demure girl, somebody who just might sit on my lap and like, want to snuggle all day. And Ronan was just not that. He wanted to like go out and explore and take risks and jump in ponds. And so there's that saying, it's like you get what you need, not what you want. And that was definitely part of it. So I always think about that now, like what would Ronan do? Yeah. And even, when I moved up here, I didn't even have a car. So I had to rent a car, and I just had this car in a duffel bag. And I remember like Ronan was sitting in the back seat, and I'm like, oh my God, this, like, I'm doing something you would do, like, okay, let's do this and let's see what happens. So, yeah, he definitely made me take more risks in my life for sure.
Did you ever talk to Ronan and say, what are we doing? Where are you taking me? What's this journey about?
Like all the time. I mean, like, this is crazy. What are we doing? But one thing, I mean, he loved cars. so he would like, we just drive around town and I would like put the window down for him. And I had this really old beat up car, which was actually amazing because I didn't care if he scratched the seat or the window or whatever. And it's like the happiest I've ever seen him. It was like his giant head, hanging out the window. So yeah.
Well, Betsy, we have a question here from Rick, and it's, did working with organizations like the Associated Press prepare you for writing a personal memoir?
That's a great question. I think one of the things, there are a lot of things it did. So with the AP, you had to be really fast. Like you had to, like if news came out, you just had like, their whole thing was be first. So it definitely made me a faster writer for sure. I'm kind of laughing because I feel like the last year or since this book has come out, I've definitely slowed down. And I think I'm just like recalibrating, from this. Like I've tried to write other things and I'm like, I just need to handwrite, or I need more time. Like I'm just a lot slower and I'm trying to like give myself permission. Yeah. And then, when you're a reporter, you are very attuned and you're observant to like what's going on around you, like what people are doing or what, like what's the thing under the thing. If someone's saying, you have to just be very perceptive. And I think that also helped me, with writing this memoir because I know you said you like the humor. Well, it was kind of like spotting the things that are funny. Personally, I love reading fish out of water stories because I think that's when we're at our most honest or vulnerable or raw, because you don't have the experience of how it's like, quote, supposed to be. So I forget how that related to AP. Oh, but it's just that you're observant. One of the things I had to do was, one of the things that sucks about being a journalist is that you usually have to work holidays. So the schedule's not that great. And they always sent me to Macy's in Herald Square for Black Friday shopping, which of course, like I hated because it was like the day after Thanksgiving, you just want to be at home and like eating leftovers. Like, I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. to like go and hear about somebody's, sale on their television. But I always think about that. And Andrew always jokes with me about it, that, it's just, you're watching the way people shop, or like, what are they saying? Or like, where are they from? What jokes are they making? It's so, it teaches you to be very observant. So.
Well, we have a question here from Kelly and another question, and then we're going to get into your tea before we wrap up and get into some little quick questions before we wrap up. From Kelly, what role has gratitude played in your journey of reinvention?
Yeah, this is also a really good question. Gratitude is just, if I can just like feel it now in my day to day, I mean, that just does so much. Because generally I sort of feel like, at least for me, I'm always looking to the next thing or like wanting the next thing. And just having like the gratitude for what you have. Like sometimes I was saying earlier, I like to write my morning pages in the morning. And sometimes one of the things I'll write is like, what are the things I was grateful for yesterday? And it's so funny because it's always the same stuff. It's like being in bed with my 3 dogs, or like getting to finish that book. Because if you think about it, like if we're here, you and I are here and we're having this conversation and all of these lovely people are coming in to comment, like that means something about our life is working right now.
Absolutely.
Accidents happen, like we could so easily not be here having this lovely conversation. So just sometimes stepping away and just being like, oh yeah, this is such a great moment.
Absolutely. And I never know who's going to tune into Tea Time. And sometimes I'm amazed by who listens to Tea Time. And I'm just like, really? So you like what comes to the table. My listeners are amazing. The supporters are amazing. And they always come with amazing questions for my guests. So we're going to wrap it up with this last question. And then we're going to get into your tea. Is from Bargain Homes is, where would you recommend the new readers begin with your work?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if you read my book. You can even contact your library and have them order it for you. Our 2 libraries here do that for books all the time. And I actually did that a lot when I didn't have a lot of money to buy books. So your local library can do that for you. On my website, if you go to the essays section, there's tons of essays there, and a lot of them were the genesis for the stories that are in the book. So that might be a really good place to start. I always love pointing people toward my New York Times Modern Love column as an example of something really amazing that happened out of something that was really embarrassing and not so great, which is where I asked out this man who I had this really big crush on, and it didn't go so well, but hey, I got a New York Times story out of it. So,
So Betsy, do you have any plans of any new books coming out or any works that we should be aware of?
I'm working on some new things. I'm kind of working on a new essay collection, and I'm just started noodling on a fiction thing, but it's going to be a while. But I would love to see you again in a few years if it.
Well, you just never know what the universe has got planned for Tea Time.
Tea Time's gonna live forever.
Forever and ever and ever. We just keep passing these tea times around, right? We just keep sharing them and getting them out there. Betsy, if you could just spell out your website for the audio listeners as well.
Yeah, it's B as in boy. Well, it's Betsy Vereckey. It's my name. It's B as in boy, ETSY, V as in Victor, ERECKEY.com. And if you actually Google Betsy Vermont writer, I am the first person to come up. So that might be easier.
So Betsy, do you have any final messages for anybody out there today?
Yeah, I recognize how painful it can be to be in a life that doesn't feel like you anymore. And I actually think it's really normal for us to kind of shut down parts of our life and become new people. Sometimes it is really cutting the cord and breaking everything and starting over, but sometimes they are smaller changes. And yeah, I guess if you're waiting for someone to give you permission to do it, like I really was for a long time waiting for someone to say, Betsy, it's okay. You can do that. And maybe that's my Catholic school upbringing or something. But if you need someone to give you permission, this is it. I am giving it to you. Do it.
Well, and before we wrap up, I just want to get into your tea really quickly. You gave me happiness is authenticity. Why'd you give me those 3 words?
Yeah, that really changed. That really started changing things for me. If it feels authentic to you, I really do feel like that will lead you to happiness. Just that little example of the bike helmet that had ice cream cones on it. And let me tell you, I feel so much like myself when I am cruising down, on my little beach cruiser with that, helmet on. And, if it feels authentic to you, you should do it. So yeah.
I really want to just thank you, Betsy, for sitting and sharing your tea and sharing your book with me and your story. I really enjoyed the book a lot. So thank you for
so
sharing
much.
that. Thank you for the listeners and viewers and supporters that have joined Tea Time today. I could not do this without you guys, but we're going to just do a quick wrap up of what today's Tea Time is. And we'll be back at 7 and we'll do this all over again. What a heartfelt, honest, and wonderful, unexpected conversation we have shared today. Betsy, thank you for bringing your humor, vulnerability, wisdom, and storytelling to the Tea Time table. Today's conversation reminded us that sharing over Starting over is rarely neat or predictable. Sometimes it begins with heartbreak. Sometimes it begins with uncertainty. Sometimes it begins with moving to a town you barely know because one beloved dog once led you there. Through moving to my dog's hometown, you showed us that home is not always that place we plan to live. It can be the place where we begin meeting ourselves again. We explored identity, relationships, grief, independence, animals, intuition, and the courage required to follow an unfamiliar path when the old one has come to an end. One of today's greatest takeaways is this: reinvention does not always begin with certainty. Sometimes it begins with one brave decision that makes no sense to anyone except the person who needs to make it. The journey reminds us that belonging is not only about geographic, it is about connection, it is about memory, it is about the people and animals who help us feel less alone. As we close today's tea time, I'd like to leave everyone with this thought. What unexpected path in your own life may be quietly inviting you towards a new beginning? Perhaps the next chapter does not need to arrive with a perfect plan. Perhaps it only needs courage, curiosity, and enough trust to take one step. Betsy, thank you for sharing your story and reminding us that a life redirected can still become a life deeply rooted. Until next time, continue following the clues life places in front of you. Continue trusting your own story and continue serving real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness, one meaningful chapter at a time. And today's takeaway from Miss Liz is home is not always where we started or where we expected to land. Sometimes home is the place where we gather the courage to begin again, guided by memory, love, intuition, and perhaps one unforgettable dog who knew the way before we did. And I'll see everybody at 7 p.m. and we'll do this all over again.